Cheers.
Cheers. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's so freaking smooth.
Isn't it?
It's so smooth.
For 90 proof, too. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
Most people, that's like the number one thing that we get, you know?
Yeah. When I try to sell this to people or like or I'm talking to a random person about it, my thing is I tell them I sip it neat.
Yeah.
Which, I don't ever do that with anything except for bourbon sometimes.
Right.
There's no other like spirit that I sip neat like that, but this I do.
Well, I mean, we always tell people, any spirit, not just, maybe with the exception of like vodka, but with most spirits, I think you should always try something. Even if you're not someone who drinks it straight, you should at least take one sip.
For sure.
Just one sip, because that's how you're going to get the true taste of anything. And then from there, throw a cube in it, or if you want to throw some soda water or some juice or a cocktail, whatever you got to do. But
yeah, man. Yeah, it's very good. It's still on the menu at Harvey's. It's still right there behind their bar.
Yeah,
so
I heard it's doing good.
We'll try to push it a little bit more there, but yeah, man, very good. So you guys just got back from a trip. You were back down to Mexico in what, April?
May. Okay. Yeah, we were down there in May, and basically just kind of tying some loose ends together. Visiting our Palenque, which is always fun. Drinking mezcal straight out of the still. There's nothing better than that.
That's awesome.
And it's hot. It's like 110 proof, but it's crazy because like you would think that it would just burn, and you can't really, it obviously there's a little bit of burn, but that's when you're gonna get the best flavor, And then from there they water it down a little bit, and you're every grotto, every percentage that they water it down, you're sacrificing a little bit of that flavor, which is why it's very important for most mezcals to be at like 90 proof or higher.
Okay.
It's in Los Angeles, a lot of the mezcal tequila bars, they won't even talk to you unless your mezcal is 90 proof or higher. So, when you see it below 90, it doesn't mean that it's, the mezcal's not good. It's just, it's watered down, or sometimes maybe, cut a little bit. So, we try to keep it as, the highest proof as possible. Something in the middle where, people can still drink it. It's not too hot, but you still get that amazing flavor,
Yeah.
It's like Oaxaca in a bottle is what we say.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So this is batch 4?
This is batch number 4, yep. Okay. And each batch we're doing about 2,000 bottles, so still very small production right now. Excuse me. Yeah, it's still, it's artisanal. Trying to not spread ourselves too thin at the moment. We really are focused on getting it in the right accounts, in the right hands. And not just putting it anywhere to sit up on the shelf, or to put it in a place that, doesn't have a lot of mezcal drinkers coming through. Just doesn't make sense just to have somebody buy it. You know, we would rather see those bottles go into places that, mezcal, fans of mezcal, mezcal enthusiasts, people that love really good cocktails, are going to come in and appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
that makes sense. It's definitely a different approach from trying to like just mass spread it out to anywhere and everywhere that you possibly can.
Yeah. And it's funny too, this is batch number 4. David and I, my partner with Dos Gabachos, we can, and Victor, he's our third partner. But we, when we sip it, each one, each batch, there's subtle differences. Most people wouldn't be able to tell that. But for us, we've been sipping this for so long, and we fans of mezcal, we're trying different mezcals all the time. Excuse me. So we, each batch we can tell, a little difference. And, this one, it's a little bit more peppery, and it's, the plants for this kind of grew around, some peppers, and, you can tell the difference with, the terroir each year, it changes. It's very similar to wine.
That's really interesting.
I got like a frog in my throat.
It really is amazing the difference you saying that, and me being able to taste that. It's got more of a bite to it.
Can you taste it? Yeah, it's a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. And like I say, very similar to wine, where different varietals, different vintages, different years, the way that the soil is that year, different things can change it. Whether it's the weather, whether it's a volcano nearby that ash gets into the soil, or a wildfire or something like that, can definitely change the way it grows and the taste that goes through it. So that's the interesting part about it. Some people would say, oh, isn't it supposed to be, factory cut, very, consistent and be the same every single time? Mezcal's not like that, and we're proud to say that. I mean, that's not something where it's like, oh, well, ours isn't consistent. That's mezcal across the board. I mean, really good mezcal, year to year, batch to batch, it changes subtly, and it's for the good. Sometimes a village that you get it from has a shortage. Sometimes you got to bring in mezcal from other villages, and then kind of blend it and make an ensemble in a sense. And sometimes it can, change the flavor a little bit. But that's what kind of makes it unique, and also gives it the character for each bottle and each batch. So like, you could say, oh, I still have a batch number 1. Do you remember this flavor was unlike any of the other batches you've ever had, or batch number 4 was my favorite, or something like that. So it's like I said, it's like holding on to like a 2019 cab from Napa that was like no other. Similar like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys, you about 2,000 bottles at each batch.
Yeah.
Or is this batch out in the wild now, or is it? You kind of holding on to it until it's ready to go?
No, this is out there. Yeah, this is out at restaurants and bars in LA. Actually, Elephant and the Dove just got this shipment of this batch.
Sweet.
So it's out there, and batch number 5 is already in production. That's coming out soon. We're also working on a mezcal rosé that's aged in some red wine barrels for about 45 days.
Wow.
Gets a little bit of the color, a little bit of the oakiness from the barrel.
Yeah.
The proof will be a little bit lower, but it's going to be the same bottle but clear, so that you can see the color from it. So, and my mixology brain that I'm nerding out on is the ideas that I'm having for some cocktails are, just through the roof. I can't wait to play with it and just do some fun things with it. So, and I think a lot of restaurants are going to love it too, because there's some rosé tequilas out there, but no one has a mezcal rosé yet.
Okay.
So we're hoping to be, one of the first ones out there to do it. So, we got the rosé, and then we're coming out with 4 wild agave bottles. We're doing a Tobola, a Tepestate, Pachuga, and a Quiche, which are all just different types of mezcal. And, they all age differently. They all grow organically at, certain lengths of time. Tepestate, for example, takes anywhere from about, 15 to 20 years to grow to maturity. And then the fact that it's wild means it's not harvested. You're not driving by a field and seeing these lines of plants. It's, these guys going out there like hunting for these wild agave plants, and then digging them up, and then producing the mezcal out of it. So it's we're going to be doing about 100 bottles of each. So for those mezcal enthusiasts out there, people who really love a good mezcal, this is going to be a fun series of bottles to try to grab, because these 4 mezcals you definitely don't mix them with anything.
Awesome.
When we were just talking about drinking neat, and once we get them, I'll have to bring some in for you. And,
that's really cool.
We'll try them and kind of go through each one. It's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm fascinated. Like, what's the business side of things of having a fucking liquor brand, like having your own mezcal product that you're trying to get out there into people's hands? I mean, what is your approach for that? I mean, I obviously, so you guys are based in LA.
Yep.
Obviously, the majority of your stuff's out there.
Yep.
Right. It's definitely, I don't know, when I think of like forward-thinking cocktail scenes in the country, I'd imagine it's the same as like following any other big city, right? It's,
absolutely.
West Coast is definitely grabbing stuff a little bit, more than even like a New York City to a certain extent. So yeah, is it just trying to go out there and hit the pavement and just get into any restaurant and bar that you want to be in? Is it liquor store focused? Is it, trying to get the individual to like, hey, ask for it at your next bar? Like, what's your approach to that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. You hit it on the head with all of that. I mean, my partner and I, we we're bootstrapping it. I mean, we are out there doing it ourselves, pounding the pavement, walking in, cold calling to places, letting them try it, leaving some sample bottles behind, trying to get on the cocktail menu. The cocktail menu is, I mean, that's the gate, that's the golden gate right there to, when you get into a restaurant. Having back bar is nice, having it sit up there and people, see it is great, but on a cocktail menu, it's, that's when it's selling.
Yeah.
And mezcal is probably one of the most popular spirits right now on a cocktail menu. I see it coming in more now into Syracuse, but in a place like Los Angeles, you can't go to a restaurant or a bar and not find a mezcal cocktail or two on a cocktail menu. And the things you can do with it are amazing. We'll see that, tomorrow night at the contest here, but even out there in Los Angeles, I mean, there's so many fun ingredients you can do with mezcal. So it's obviously a lot of restaurants and bars, hotels, liquor stores are big for us. Total Wine and More is one of our bigger accounts. We're in 14 locations in SoCal.
Nice.
And we do a lot of dry demos there. And again, that's us doing it. It's funny, a dry demo, what is that? Well, you have to sell a bottle and you have to convince these customers that come in to buy a bottle without tasting it.
Yeah. Oh.
So how do you do that? Well, mezcal is a very fragrant spirit. So we have a little perfume bottle and we spray some in like a Hikara cup or something like that, let them smell it. And what you're really doing is you're selling the story. You're selling yourself.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised most of the dry demos that we do there are anywhere between 3 and 6 hours. And David and I can, we could sell sometimes anywhere between 15 and 20 bottles in that amount of time. Just from selling the story and then letting people, most of the times you'll see other brands doing dry demos and they're sending liquor reps, or they're sending somebody from an agency that they're paying to go do that. When people realize that we're the founders and this is our baby, this is our brand, I think sometimes people are like, they appreciate the hustle too. They're like, wow, you're out here on a Saturday standing here talking, just asking people if they like mezcal.
Right.
And the price point's good, $50 for, a bottle. Okay. Well, I'll try one.
That's cool.
So you got to know how to, obviously sell it there, but, you're just basically telling your story, how we're, blue collar guys, used to be bartenders, and, decided to come out with our own mezcal. And, obviously there's more to it, but so liquor stores is big for us. And then, social media, we try to get it in the hands of some influencers and do stuff like this podcasts. We do some stuff out in LA. Lucas Assis, we've worked with him on some things. Cool. So I think it's, we try to do some videos, making cocktails, try to influence, show off our mixology, the days of being a mixologist and, our ideas on that end. So it's a hustle. It's not easy. It's, there's a lot of hoops to jump through and then you're dealing with all the, the border stuff and stuff in Mexico and on the business side, which is, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on that alone. I mean, that's it's a lot of work, but it's fun. In the end, it's still a trip to us when you walk into a restaurant and you're out for dinner with friends and stuff. And it's like, oh, look, there's our bottle right there. It's on the cocktail menu and people are ordering it. And it's rewarding to see that for sure.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why are they dry tastings at these places? Is it like a California law?
Yeah, so they're allowed to do like a regular tasting with wine on Saturdays. They're actually working on it right now to start introducing a regular tasting for spirits as well. But law-wise, and it's also a Total Wine thing too. They they basically, they don't want a lot of their customers coming in there and, kind of taking advantage of it. And so, you set up a little booth and, you smell it. They, look at the bottle. We have a bunch of Hikara cups. Sometimes we'll if you buy a bottle, we'll give you one. It's a traditional way to sip mezcal, and it's got our name on it and stuff like that. So, cool. it would be a lot easier, because we do some like tequila fest and mezcal festivals and stuff like that where people can sip it, But then it's funny because then what happens in those festivals is for the first 20, 30 minutes, you see people coming through genuinely wanting to learn about your brand, right? But if you think about it, these people pay anywhere from $80 to $200 for a ticket to go into these festivals and to sample everything and to eat and do the whole thing. Majority of the reason why these people go to these things is they get a good buzz and kind of get lit, eat some food, Sure. So at first, they're genuine about it, and then you start to see people kind of unravel, and they start to, they drink it a little bit too much. They're coming up, you're trying to talk about your brand, and they're like, "Well, let me get some more," They just, but it's a good opportunity to sell some bottles, and we're able to do that, and I always say to David, I say it's one person at a time, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If we can, there's just a lot of people out there, but if every day we can set a goal to get out there and influence or kind of turn somebody into a fan of mezcal and a fan of our mezcal, if we can just do that one at a time, could take a long time, but still we're going in the right direction.
For sure.
So that's the goal. It's trying to show this amazing spirit that we have, try to get it in as many hands as possible.
Yeah. What's the current status of the bar scene in LA? I know that's like a massive question, but are there trends that are popping off right now out there?
Yeah, it's booming. Just like any big city. Mezcal and tequila are huge in LA because it's a big Hispanic culture out there, and obviously that's those spirits are going to be super popular. But the time I spent in New York City too, you see just some amazing cocktail bars and speakeasies. Those are my favorite. I love a good speakeasy. It's I think it's the trend really, at least in LA, is you see a lot of these places really infiltrating farmers markets. Really taking and they show it. They talk about it on the menus and. People, these head mixologists, spending time just like a chef would. You look at it, it's very similar in the sense, it's like, you have these amazing chefs that go out there and they spend time on their ingredients and, hand picking the freshness and organic and stuff like that, to bring into a dish that you're going to eat. Well, why not with something that you're going to drink? Why not? So, you're seeing a lot of mixology bars kind of showing that off, and it's a lot of a lot of agave bars. They're popping up everywhere, which is good for us. But you can do some fun things with it. These agave bars is not just tequila, it's not just mezcal. It's raicilla, it's sotol. You can really take. We're trying to develop right now a gin made from agave. So you can do some fun stuff. With agave as the base. So. It's a great scene. There's a lot of cocktail contests and stuff like that out there that we are a part of, and it's fun to see, some of these bartenders. It's awesome to see the ideas they come up with and the fun ingredients they come up with for some cocktails. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is there a big, what's the average price for a cocktail out in LA?
Out in LA, average price, probably $18 to $20.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's anywhere. Smaller towns. Right in Hollywood or downtown LA or West Side. That's why I love coming back to Syracuse sometimes. It's like, you could open a tab and you're like, yeah, really, that's it? After you close out, that's it. But it's also like, I've always been big on, you pay for what you get. I don't mind paying for something. It's the same with restaurants too. Like, I'll pay for good food. I don't mind it. Like, if I have an amazing dish, I don't care how much it is. Like, it's worth it. You know. Same thing with a cocktail. But sometimes when you get something disappointing and you're paying a lot,
for sure,
then it's like, oh man, I wish I didn't pay that. But for the most part out there, you get some good cocktails, but there's sometimes it kind of lets you down, and it doesn't matter. It's still $18 to $20.
Yeah,
it's rich. It's rich for your blood for sure.
Yeah, for sure. around here, and I think it's obviously still is, not just in Syracuse or Central New York, but all over. Like bourbon is still a thing. And I was talking to somebody, and I was talking to a client, and we were talking about like what we could do with their bar to make it interesting. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was like, let's just try and get all of the allocated bourbons that nobody else can, or that like few can. Let's try and go get the Pappies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which means we just have to buy a fuck ton of Fireball.
Right.
And, and so, and then I was thinking to myself, it was like, actually, let's try and get like a bunch of like tequilas and mezcals. Like nobody in Syracuse, to my knowledge, is really hammering that kind of stuff. Nobody. Besides, just the typical, Casa Azul and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
There's those massive bottles that, people want to flex with, but there isn't really like the appreciation for it. And then I mentioned that to somebody. I was like, yeah, we're thinking about doing this. And they were like, oh yeah, but that trend really went out to like 2 years ago with like the tequila and mezcal. I was like, I don't think that trend has hit Syracuse yet.
Right.
It's definitely something that I see following places all around the country, where people are pushing that. Like I see those pushed a hell of a lot more from influential restaurants and bars than I do bourbons anymore.
Yeah.
But unless somebody wants to flex with like a Pappy, whatever, or some other incredibly rare bourbon or, whatever the spirit is. But that hasn't hit, like the agave has not hit Syracuse yet. Yeah,
it definitely is not a trend that's expired by any means. I mean, we're seeing it in LA. I mean, it's popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that here. I mean, like calling all, people who are current bar owners, restaurant owners, or somebody that's interested in it. I think there's a market for it. I mean, I don't think you do it big, like, something quaint and, kind of more intimate, kind of low light, some candles, you maybe have a little bit of food, but really feature some really good agave cocktails, and then have some great agave spirits, for people to enjoy that. I think that would be awesome here. I think it's going in the right direction for sure. I mean, just the fact that, we're able to have this in multiple spots in Syracuse, and they're reordering it, and, places that are really kind of putting that on the map, is huge for Syracuse. I mean, I left Syracuse about 16 years ago. Actually, coming up next weekend will be 16 years in Los Angeles. I've been out there, and just the cocktail scene that has developed from the time I left, to now is awesome. I mean, I love to see it, and it's great for the city. I think it gives people something to do. It's something different. And it, you get a chance to learn about, that culture and, the food and the cuisine, and, I think it's great. I would love to see an agave bar here. I mean, I think that would be really cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I should try and get you a tour of Mizpah. I'm helping with a project that's happening downtown. It's in this old church, Mizpah Tower. It's been empty for years, and this local business owner is going to be turning it into some sort of a venue. We're still trying to work through what it's going to be, but I should try and get you a tour in there, because it's pretty fucking cool.
Oh, I would love that. For sure.
But so I think like we're doing the cocktail contest, tomorrow, which you're sponsoring. Thank you so much.
Of course. No, thanks for having us.
And it's just something like when I look at, especially I've been traveling in Western New York so much this year.
Yeah.
And seeing what those other cities, Rochester in particular, is such a much more advanced food and bar scene than Syracuse.
Totally.
And not only do they have like their cocktail revival that's been active for a few years now, but they're actually, I think it's happening this week. They have a tiki week that's going on all throughout Rochester at like different bars. So in the last cocktail competition in Syracuse was pre-COVID. I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago. And I'm surprised nobody's done it since then. So we're excited to do this first one. It's smaller, but I was just talking to John. So, the cocktail competition is me and John Page over at 3 Lives. You've come in as a sponsor. And I think in March, we're going to do like a spirits week. So like bring in a bunch of different bars in downtown Syracuse and just do a whole week of like pushing cocktails and different spirits and that
Love
kind of
that.
stuff. So
Yeah.
I think that'll be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, just trying to like do the first step of trying to push, maybe a little bit more of a culture of this, of cocktails in Central New York and Syracuse would be awesome.
Yeah, I love what you guys are doing with this. I mean, it's great, and we appreciate using us as having us be a sponsor and using the spirit. I'm really excited to see some of the cocktails that these guys come up with.
Yeah.
And to try it, and it's exciting for me from a mixology background. We're even like that out in LA. When a restaurant or bar brings it in, we say to them, now listen, first and foremost, we would love to see a cocktail that your bartenders come up with or your mixologists come up with. But if you need help, we're here for you. Like just a Rolodex of cocktails that I could do with this, but from a mixology background, we like to see what some of the other people, because there's so many talented mixologists out there that just come up with crazy ideas that are it's so delicious, these drinks. And so we like to see what people come up with, and if they need us to, then we will. But these contests are great because you get to kind of see that it's great for the restaurants, it's great for the spirit, and like I said, right now mezcal is probably even on a national level, if you watch some of these cocktail competitions on Netflix and some of these other platforms, I mean, they're using mezcal as like one of the main spirits because you can do so much with it. It's such a complex spirit. It's well balanced, and you can do a lot with it with some different ingredients, and it's fun. So it adds such a different element to the cocktails. So yeah, I'm really excited. It's gonna be a good night, and
I think it'll be fun.
I'm looking forward to talking to people, that anybody who's interested in learning more about mezcal. I think that's, for my partners and I, that's number one on our list. As we move forward with this, is educating people on what it is. It's not a smoky tequila.
Right.
It's a mezcal. Tequila is actually a mezcal. So there's so much to learn about it, and if we can just if you can take anything from it, and that's what kind of develops, not an obsession, but, an ability to enjoy something different. And that's what happened to us. We almost got infected by it. It was like, oh, what's this mezcal? And we had we kind of had an idea of what it was prior to learning about it. And it was totally different once we actually learned about it. And then within that education process and learning about it, we just became so fascinated by it, and then we just became, obsessed with it, and just, there was so much to learn, and so I think that's the fun part about mezcal is, there's so much to learn about it, and then, moving forward, just trying it in different sips, and the different tastes, and understanding what it is. It's a fun spirit for sure.
Yeah, I will say it's really great working with you guys because. A lot of the local distilleries or like liquor spirits companies here in Central New York, if I had gone to them and said like, hey, we're doing this competition, we're going to feature your stuff as like the base spirit, they have to use it, we're going to have this many people here, we're going to do this, and we need this for the prize money, they would have been like, yeah, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
In like a nicer upstate New York way, but they would not have done it.
Right.
And then like large brands, handling marketing for like a bar in town, we go to a large brand. If we can get to like the rep from the brand and not the distributor, they're like open arms.
Of course.
What would you like from us? And there's a couple beer brands there's one beer brand that we've done that with, and they're just like, anything you want. You have anything you want to help us push our brand in your bar.
Right.
And it's working incredibly well for all parties. For the customers who are getting these awesome experiences, for the bar because now we get to push stuff, and then for the brand because they're selling a shit ton of their product. And some of the liquor companies, like if we get to the liquor company like rep themselves and not the distributor, they're in the same boat. They're like, we're sending models from Heart Agency. They're going to be there for 3 hours pouring samples, and it's wonderful for us and for them because they're moving more product and customer, all that kind of stuff. There's not many local spirits or beer companies or alcohol companies in Central New York that have a similar mindset when it comes to that, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for us, I mean, when you mentioned it to me, I mean, I didn't even think twice. I mean, I jumped on a plane and came from Los Angeles to be here. You know, what does that say? You know, my partner wanted to be here too. Obviously, he has to attend. We have some tastings and some other stuff. Some business back in Los Angeles that he's got to do. But for me, being from Syracuse, like this is something that I realize is so important for the city. You know, when it comes to this industry. So I wanted to be here and kind of experience it and answer any questions that I can. And just, like you said, it's an experience for the guests, that's the key word, an experience. And that's what grabs people, when you have an experience like that and it's something fun and you're tasting something good and it's a good vibe, good energy, good atmosphere, they want more of it. Yeah. And then I'm sure down the road, it's probably something like once you see the success from this, it's like, okay, well now, how do we expand this? How do we maybe get like Rochester involved too, and Syracuse, and like maybe do something like a whole upstate thing. It's awesome to see, and being a guy from Syracuse, originally born and raised. I love seeing this. Like to me, that's why I told David, I'm like, listen, I'm gonna jump on a plane. I'm gonna go there because I want to be a part of this because it's awesome. It's great to see the evolution of it. Yeah. In upstate New York for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So how great is it to live in Los Angeles, or does it suck? Or tell me, what's it like to be a resident of? Southern California?
It was a challenge at first. On a personal level, it was the first year I moved out there, which was like I said, 16 years ago. It was tough. I was homesick. I come from a big Italian family who, you're very, family first, seeing your family all the time. And then here you go, move 3,000 miles away, to a totally different culture, a totally different vibe. First year was really hard. I was definitely a little homesick. The good part was that I moved out there with 3 of my best friends, all Syracuse natives. We all grew up here, went to high school here together. We were all best friends here. And we decided together to go out there, kind of like Entourage, That's it was cool. Like, it was 4 of us. And, we had each other. We were, like brothers, still are. We're still close. But, I think once being out there, and kind of getting used to it, and then actually exploring the state itself and the West Coast, being able to do more road trips to like Arizona and Nevada, obviously quick flight to Vegas. But no,
what is that? Is that 4 hours?
Drive,
not the flight.
Drive is 4 hours. Okay. Yeah. Flight is like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can literally put on the clothes you're going to wear out, get on a plane and get off, just go right to where you're going. But, just seeing all the beauty in the state of California, just the mountains and the oceans and how they come together, the skiing, the snowboarding, the beaches, the surfing, the wine country is absolutely amazing. The desert, I love Palm Springs. I love the vibe out there, golfing, it's just, there's so much. You slowly, I slowly started to really love it and, call it home. But, I'll never forget where I came from. I'm still at heart, a New York guy. I love coming back here. My family's here. Thankfully, my work and, everything with this, brings me back here. It's why I wanted to, try to get into a lot of restaurants here, that made sense, just to kind of bring that here and, to kind of watch mezcal evolve here in upstate. But, LA's, it's an interesting place. I mean, it as cliche as it sounds, I mean, the weather is what keeps me there. I know sure. I mean, that's probably the most cliche answer, but it's true. I mean, I send pictures of me golfing to my buddies when in the middle of February, although the winters here the last 5 years, it hasn't been too bad.
They haven't been that bad. Yeah.
I haven't been able to brag as much. I know. It's
especially the last 2 or 3, the snowfall has been next to nothing.
Then that's the thing. I love coming back for Christmas and seeing, there's nothing better than having that fire and, the sauce and all the food my mom makes and drinking wine and watching the snow in the snowfall. And it's been like green Christmases the last few years. So I don't know what's going on.
I know. Yeah. I don't know what the winter's going to be like this year. I think it's going to be another mild one, but I don't know. We'll see.
Now, you've been to LA before, right?
Yeah. So I went to LA back when I was living in near Austin. I was working for this church, and the church that I was working at, they were taking their youth group out to LA for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so I somehow got roped into like going out there and being like one of the chaperones essentially with the teenagers.
Oh
so
my God.
I forget how many kids we had. We flew out there. We were staying at there's this like ministry, this group that does like street evangelism stuff. And they're right on Hollywood Boulevard. And as a matter of fact, they're like right next to like one of the main Scientology training centers on Hollywood.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I used to wake up early every morning and walk down to the Starbucks in Hollywood and Vine and get coffee and sit there and just like hang out for an hour by myself. And so, oh man, what was the name of that place?
I used to live on Vine, actually, to be honest with you, for like a
really?
year and a half. Yeah, I know the area really well.
Okay.
You're talking about, were you trying to think of a coffee spot or?
The coffee spot I would go to was the Starbucks.
Oh, Starbucks,
right there. But
okay.
the name of that ministry was called the Oasis of Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are really cool people, like normal people, you know, not like lunatics, like some of us are. And although I'm not really practicing anymore, so some of them are. But I mean, it was a really cool experience. But one of the days that we were there, and me and a few of my friends that were like the other chaperones at the time, and I'm 38 now, so I was like 28 at the time, 27 at the time, something like that. We would sneak off. There was a couple like places we would go to. There was a couple Mexican restaurants like on Hollywood Boulevard that we went to. Anyways, but which I'm sure was like not the greatest Mexican food anywhere in Los Angeles, but for us it was like, holy shit, what is this?
I mean, listen, sometimes even just the corner taco spot on Hollywood Boulevard is still better than most of them across the country.
For sure.
So it probably still was quality.
Yeah. But there was one day that we took all the kids down to Skid Row.
Oh my God.
And this is, what year is this? Today's 20. So this is like 2014, 2015, I think. And so we took all the kids down to Skid Row, and we had like packed up these Ziploc freezer bags with like socks and soap and toiletries and that kind of stuff.
Trying to do some good for her. Yeah. Okay, got you.
And so, but literally they had just like dropped all of us off at like one end of Skid Row and was like, all right, we'll meet you down at the other end. And so we're just like, you know,
I can totally see this because I've driven through it many times and I can't even imagine this. This is crazy.
And we had everybody in our group from like kids from like Central Texas, you know, a town of like 10,000 to that were like poorer than poor. So kids from that all the way up to like mega church pastors' kids that are like, you know, grew up with like Louis Vuitton belts and shit. So like that's the whole gamut that we have. Black, white, like we've got everybody in our like little youth group.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're trying to walk all these fucking kids down and, you know, like hand out these packs to these people that are living on Skid Row like Jesus loves you, which like, listen, is an overall, it's a beautiful thing to do, whatever the fuck, right?
I can't even imagine with the kids. It's like, all right, look both ways before you cross, but then also look behind you and in front of you too, because
and it was broad daylight. You know, it was like 11 a.m. whatever it was. But you know, I think, I mean, aside from just like the overall reality of like this Skid Row, I think like the worst quote unquote thing that they saw was there was just like a woman walking around completely naked, right? Yeah. Which, listen, Austin, 6th Street on a Friday night, you're going to see that anyways. Right. So the cool, so that was just a unique experience, needless to say. The cool encounter was I had like a group of 8 of them that was with me that I was like responsible for, and we walked up on this one guy, and this black guy was there, had this like big, he had like a, you know, sizable camp, whatever the fuck. And so we walk up, and I think he was like one of the last people we encountered that day. And so we handed him the pack and like the bag, and he was like, thank you so much. And he was like, where are you kids from? You know, and we were like sitting there like talking to the kids, and you know, like everybody, like there was other people that were like aggressive with us, like get the fuck out of here. Right. Some people were just like, you know, whatever. And so this guy was like, where are you guys from? What are you doing here? Friendly person. You would never, if you encountered this person at the grocery store,
Yeah.
you would never expect, wow, you live on Skid Row. And so we're talking to him, and he was like, listen, he tells these like teenage kids who are anywhere from like 12 to 16 in the group. And he's like, listen, you're one decision away from ending up like me.
Wow.
He was like, he's like, take your life very seriously.
Wow.
He's like, you could fuck up and all of a sudden you're in a path of your life that you could be me one day. And he was like, don't screw up. He's like, stay on the straight and narrow path. And then he looked at me as like, and you can't let them screw up.
Wow.
I was like, holy shit. So I forget why I had my Bible with me at the time. And we were walking down there. And he had a Bible and with him. And so as we're like talking, and I'm like, Jesus, this is like a very, as the teenagers, I don't know what they were experiencing. As an adult, I'm like, holy shit, this is a very serious moment.
Yeah.
And so he and I wound up exchanging Bibles. Like I gave him mine, he gave me his, which is kind of like a pretty personal thing. Because like, if you're at the time, I'm in the culture, ingrained in it, you're like making notes, and it's like, it's like a study thing, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
So we exchanged Bibles. I didn't know it at the time. His was like the Bible you get when you're in prison. And so we exchanged Bibles, go about our day, right? Whatever happens from that. And the next morning, I'm at the Starbucks in Hollywood and Vine, and I'm like hanging out there, getting coffee. I've got I'm like studying, like have my Bible with me. And my Bible's on like the edge of the table, and this dude walks by, and he's like, hey, he like sees the Bible. He's like, hey, me too. Where were you at? And it hasn't dawned on me that this is the Bible you get when you're in prison, right? And so I was like, oh, it was like, hey, how's it going? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He was like, you were obviously locked up. I was like, oh, no, I wasn't locked up. I was like, and I tell him the story. He was like, oh, and he's the one that told me, he's like, just so you know, this is the Bible that prisoners get.
Wow.
He's like, so if you have it with you, you must have been in jail.
Wow.
I was like, not me.
Do you still have that?
I think I do somewhere, yeah.
Wow.
It was like a really impactful, obviously a really impactful story.
Yeah.
I mean, just the sheer experience of like taking kids from like every walk of life and walking them down Skid Row,
Yeah.
which most of them were like, what the fuck is this?
Well, I was going to ask you afterwards, what was the feedback from them? Like, was there any, do you feel like it resonated with any of them, or like,
Yeah, for sure. So, I don't know. You maybe grew up Catholic?
I grew up Catholic. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I grew up non-denominational Christian, and we'll get super crazy here for a second.
Yeah.
Is that cool?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I grew up non-denominational Christian and sort of bordering evangelical, but not really. I grew up in the sect of Christianity that believes that the stories of like Jesus like healing people. We believe like that happens today, right? And it's not just some like random miracle from a saint. It's like, like there's really only one, despite all the parables that Jesus told his disciples in the Bible, there's really only one area of his life recorded in the Bible where he was like, hey, this is specifically what you're supposed to do. And that's like really the basis of Christianity. Go into all the world, preach the gospel, heal the sick, raise the dead, heal the brokenhearted. Like those are the things that where it's like, if there's one area of the Bible where it's like, this is what you're supposed to do as a Christian, that's it.
Right.
And so when churches and like from North American churches go on mission trips and they go all over the fucking world, right? Sometimes in America, my sister, when she back in like the 90s, when she was a teenager, early 90s, their mission trip, they would go on to like these Native American reservations in like Arizona and shit.
Wow.
And so there's some where it's like, hey, we're going to build an orphanage. We're going to build a school in Africa. And then there's some like what we took these kids in LA where we were walking down Skid Row handing out these packs. No matter what you're doing on a missions trip, it's like super concentrated, right? It's like you go into an experience, you go into a situation expecting something, and you're usually met with that expectation. So it's hard to avoid it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you go into, So with that being said, these kids, that entire time that we were in LA, were experiencing things that were just like, on like a spiritual biblical aspect. It's sort of like, like there's the story of like Jacob in the Bible and like the Old Testament where he's like, all right, God, if you're real, I'm going to lay this blanket down, and dew isn't going to be anywhere, like the mist in the morning isn't going to be anywhere else in the ground except for on this blanket. And then he wakes up in the morning and the mist is on the blanket, nowhere else. It's like if you're sort of like going into something really saying like, all right, I'm going to go take 50 kids to Los Angeles for a couple weeks and we're going to expect something to happen. Something's going to happen.
Right.
And so the kids, the entire trip, just had wild experiences. I mean, just crazy stuff. We can talk about those if you want, but I don't know if you want to get that weird with it. But
no, I mean, I think just the fact that you said that it's, that it was very impactful, just to be able to see that from your eyes. I mean, it's probably so, rewarding in a sense, just
sure.
to like know that you're, the whole reason behind your mission at that time, was because that is an area where, I mean, like I said, I've been through there many times. I mean, it definitely needs help. I mean, it's still like that. I mean, you're talking about 10 years ago. It's worse now.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. And it's, and you try to help and, you do what you can, but it's pretty crazy down there.
I mean, not to like superficially tie it back to business, but I think it's the same thing. I mean, at the end of the day, and this might seem incredibly vain, but I think it's similar. Like you guys are going to these liquor stores and doing these dry tastings.
Yeah.
And, you might sell a bottle, you might not, right? You might sell 20 bottles, you might not. But you can have these connections with people while you're there. And not only can you just have this great connection with a person who might change their day, like they might come into the liquor store pissed off and then all of a sudden encounter you.
Yeah.
And, you're like, hey, you want to talk about men? Like, they experience your passion for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or they sit there and they're like, man, this dude's sitting here, business owner, entrepreneur, sitting in this liquor store on a whatever afternoon, talking, like they get inspired by that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And there's all these like little encounters that could be so impactful for a person. But I think it's the same as like there's little things that we can do like that may not seem like anything today, but later on in life we carry that memory or those stories. There's shit I'm gonna forget throughout my entire life.
Right.
I forget stuff that happened 2 days ago. And that my wife will always remind me of things I forgot. But those are stories that like, I can remember that stuff vividly.
Yeah.
Like those experiences. And like in some cases, like the looks on these kids' faces as they're experiencing that stuff. So I think that there's like, it doesn't necessarily seem like such a big thing at the time. Like even like trading the Bible with that guy, but it's something like it's so impactful for me. I think it's the same in what we do as business owners. Like, it's like, all right, I got to go to the liquor store. I got to go do this 4 hours dry tasting. I've got to get people to like try and buy this stuff. But we have no idea what our passion might have an effect on the other person.
Yeah.
No,
it's true. And you're not getting paid for it either, and there's a lot of rejection that come into it as well. I mean, you're looking at the big picture, you're looking at the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal, and it's, like I said, if we ever brought somebody in there to, do it, that's not us. Yeah, they're getting paid a little bit of money, but when we go do it, we're not. And there's a lot of people that, I'm like, hey, buddy, how's it going? You like mezcal? No, or like don't even make eye contact with you. You're just trying to start a conversation. You know? Or even David and I walking into a restaurant and, hey, you want to try this? Oh, we don't need any more mezcal right now. Yeah, but this is, it's really good. Yeah, that's what they all say. All right, keep moving. There's a lot of rejection behind it. It definitely tests you for sure.
Yeah.
But that's what life's about. And it's we believe in it, and it's our baby, and it's we definitely it's all about being persistent and just believing in what you have, and kind of trying to spread it as best you can.
Yeah. The gospel of Dos Gabachos.
There you go. It's like a Bible in a sense.
I mean, listen, dude, being an entrepreneur can suck.
Yeah.
It is not for the faint of heart by any stretch of the imagination. I have been almost like an advocate for people not following their dreams in the food and beverage industry, because I've seen so many people who have followed their passion, followed their dream, and then failed completely, miserably. And I'm like, man, there's so many people that shouldn't be doing this. But
you see it a lot, especially in the restaurant industry and bar industry. I mean, it's tough. You know? Especially in Los Angeles too. I mean, you see
I can't imagine.
I mean, you see there's restaurants that are great that I've been to, and all of a sudden I go to make a reservation and it's closed down or whatever. You're like, wow, how? I loved the food there. It's just, I give them a lot of credit. I mean, it's a hard business, hard industry to be involved in, for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And it's just like the intensity of it and the seriousness of it. Every single day having to hope you're getting customers at the door.
Yeah, and it's about your staff too. Having a good staff. I mean, part of what we do is if a restaurant does bring us in, it's not just like, okay, well, here's the case, good luck. We try to, one of the things that are very important to us is educating your staff, because you can bring in our product, but there's somebody between the product and the guest, and that the somebody between it is the server or the bartender, So it's like, why would you ignore them? So it's all about in having an incentive program or, education. I go back to the years. So I worked for the Marriott for 10 years. I was a bartender there. When I first moved out to Los Angeles, I was lucky enough to get a job at the JW Marriott in LA Live, right across from the Staples Center where the Lakers played. I mean, probably the most electric area you can imagine. I mean, we had MTV Music Awards, the Emmys, the Grammys, Lakers, Clippers, Kings, hockey. I mean, everything, WNBA, concerts. It was the most electric area, in California. I mean, really. Bartending during that was an experience for sure. And I will say that the Marriott did a great job of, they wanted their employees to be educated. So, when we would have monthly staff meetings and stuff like that, they would always make sure that they had a rep or an owner or somebody from a brand or from a distribution company or something like that, coming in, talking about different brands, talking about spirits, talking about beers, talking about wines, winemakers. And, it was smart for them to do that, because I remember personally, I'll never forget Templeton Rye, to this day, one of my favorite ryes. There was a rep that came in and he was, giving us the whole spiel and, talking to us about it, telling us about how it was Al Capone's favorite rye. And how he had it, and people would sneak it into him when he was in jail, and this and that. And I just loved the story. Yeah. And I remember that day, I had a shift right after, and going in, setting up the bar, and this gentleman from Minneapolis came in and traveling on business. He's by himself, and he's like, hey, can I get a Manhattan up with Knob Creek? And I said, okay. I was like, have you ever had Templeton Rye before? And he's like, no, I've never tried it. And here I am. Almost like a rep for the company, coming fresh out of this meeting. Well, this was Al Capone's favorite rye, and he loved it because of this, and this is the taste of it, and these are the notes. Goes really good with a Manhattan, blah blah blah. And he's like, all right, I'll give it a try, And then he tastes it, and he's like, this is amazing. I'm gonna order this from now on. So that really stuck with me. And, now that we have our own spirit, I always look back at that experience and say, if we could do that with bartenders and servers, even bar managers, whatever it may be, it's going to help not only our brand, but it's going to help, the restaurant or the bar that's given us a chance to bring it in. It's going to sell, and it's going to help kind of spread the story. So if we can go in there and talk to 15, 20 people and, tell our story about how we were, mixologists and how, this is something we did, it's inspiration in a sense, it's,
sure.
Because I remember being there wanting more out of life. David and I, my partner, we used to sit behind the bar on dead, when it was not busy.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, man, like, this is a good job, but, I want more out of, what else can we do? Like, I want, we were always wanting to, we were always on the hustle, and, the fact that this trip to Mexico City, which kind of changed our lives, and then the idea of coming out with our own mezcal, and then a lot of other bartenders, when we first came back from that trip and we were telling them, people we worked with kind of laughed at us. Like, oh, yeah, good luck, And it was like, all right, yeah. I mean, yeah, good chance it might not work out, but, we believe in it. We're passionate about it. We're going to give it a shot, you know? And now you look back on that, and it's almost motivation. It's fuel to kind of drive you,
Yeah, for sure.
And it's good knowledge, for these workers and, these people that are behind the bar, and, they get excited about it. And that's important to us, for sure, especially because they're in the industry and, they're probably sipping on something all the time. And if they like it, then we know we have something good,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the chip on my shoulder has really helped me with the business, because there's certain,
for sure.
There's certain, like, if I see a competitor or something like that out there, it's very rare that if I see them doing something where it puts me into a funk, I'm usually like, I'm gonna go fucking crush them.
Yeah.
And I do feel like, and I haven't had this a lot with the business, but you definitely have to have a certain a certain amount of just blind confidence when you're for a while.
For sure.
Not just in the beginning. I think it's easy to have that blind confidence in the beginning, but it's really like those kind of middle years where you really have to have it, where it's just like, I am the best. No one is going to beat me. I'm just going to keep pressing on with this. And, there's people that I know. Well, there's people that have just like, you have to, actually, this guy just DM'd me not too long ago on Instagram. And his question was, I'm currently a teacher, and I forget how long he said he'd been a teacher for. He was like, I really want to open up either a food truck or a restaurant, and I was wondering if I could get your advice on how to do that and document it, like to post content. And so I responded, and I was like, are you asking like how to open a restaurant or how to open a restaurant and like post on social media about it? He was like, well, both, but let's start with how to open a restaurant. And my advice was, don't. my advice was like, stay a teacher. Unless this is, and I was like, unless this is the only thing that you can think about.
Right.
You've been thinking about this for years. You've got the best of whatever you're going to make. You've got recipes. You have your plan. You know how you're going to staff it, how you're going to treat your staff, how you're going to buy stuff, where you're going to, like, unless this is all you can eat, sleep, and breathe, don't fucking do it.
Yeah. That's well said.
He didn't respond to me.
He was like, okay, point taken. Okay, I'm going to continue to teach.
Right. And you do have to have that. I mean, listen, I've been doing this for 9 years. It's not easy. And, but when I think about like what the alternative is, or do I want to go get a job? I can't, like, I'm like, there's no fucking way I could do that.
Yeah.
There's no way I could go do anything other than this.
Yeah. No, it's, I mean, it's, it comes down to passion, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. I mean, we look at ours, we're like, we have the best juice, I mean, we love mezcal in general, and we're fans. We're not sitting there saying like our juice is better than anybody else. Our mezcal is better than anybody else, but we do sit there and say we have really good juice. And it's not because we didn't go over to Mexico, with a bunch of money and say, let's just, grab some mezcal and market it. And like, that's going to be our juice. We put a lot of time and effort into it. I mean, when we first decided to do this was 8 years ago. I mean, obviously you throw COVID in the mix, so that's going to hold you back a little bit. But, it took us about, 10 trips to Oaxaca before we actually found what we wanted. And in that process, we were tasting amazing mezcals, but we looked at it as, we took a step back and said, okay, we're fans of mezcal, right? And, we go into restaurants and bars, we order mezcal. We order cocktails with it, we order it neat, we try different things. When we go to Oaxaca, how's that any different? We should look at Oaxaca as a giant bar, and it's like we're sitting at these different palenques and we're tasting these different mezcals. What do we want to represent us? Like, what mezcal do we want to reflect us as, as a company, as a brand? What would we sit down at a bar and what would we drink? And that's what's in this bottle. That's the way we look at it. It's not like we just, threw something in a bottle and smacked the label on it. I mean, this is coming from people who are very passionate about mezcal and, and trying to spread that, you know? So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it does. It comes down to passion, man. That's really what it's about. And, it's about that because everything we make from this goes right back into the business, and we're okay with that. And we all have other jobs. I'm a photographer. My father was a photographer, passed that down to me. I've done that I've done well with that out in Los Angeles. Cool. I shoot a lot of destination weddings. I shoot corporate photography, and that's what puts food on the table. Cool. My partner does the same thing. He's a photographer as well. And that's how he feeds his family. And it actually gives us a unique vantage point of the brand. If you look at our website, if you go to our Instagram, if you look at some of the marketing material we have, the vision you see through the lens is through our lens. It's not through somebody that they hired from a marketing company or anything like that. It's through ours. Yeah. We've done it. I mean, this is us being at palenques in Mexico, doing everything that, putting agaves in the pit, roasting it, everything you see is all through our lens. So, cool. We kind of wanted to add that vision of it, kind of a unique sense, saying, okay, this is actually from them. Yeah. We thought that was kind of just a little something different, that's what it's about, right? You have tons of brands out there. There's a lot of competition. It's about, setting yourself about just being just a little bit different, a little bit more unique than the next brand, Yeah. What can you do to offer, just, something that's not like everybody else,
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Rich, thanks so much for coming
Absolutely,
in, man.
man.
Yeah. So people can find you in Central New York. I know Elephant and the Dove, Harvey's Garden.
Harvey's Garden, Elephant and the Dove, Alto Cinco, Daniela's, Exo Taco, Persimmons out in Timberbanks, Possibilities. We were there for a little bit. I think still working on getting some more in there. But yeah, we're doing well, I think, for Syracuse right now. Picking the right spots. We're at Torchwood liquor store out in Cicero.
Yeah.
They always have our bottles there. So if you want to go out there and pick up a bottle. Cool. I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. It's going to be fun.
Be a lot of fun.
It's happy to answer any questions for people that are coming out, but I think it's just going to be fun just to see the competition aspect of it, just to see what you can get when you go to these restaurants and the type of level of cocktail that you're going to get. And, it's worth it. Even if they do charge a little bit more for a cocktail, if you get an amazing cocktail, it's okay. It's worth it. You have a good spirit, you have somebody behind it that's, that's putting their love into this craft. And, we're just happy to be a part of it. So we appreciate the time and, appreciate the opportunity to do this, and looking forward to, many more opportunities, moving forward and, helping, Syracuse in general as a city just kind of become more of a cocktail landing spot.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome. All right. Thanks, dude.
Cool. Thank you, brother.